if you, as you spend more time online and you find out how many things change and you find out how many things don't work on the internet, you'll get a lot more excited about headlines. And when I say headlines, I'm saying everything from the subheadlines to the image that you use so it shows up on Facebook. I have to have my programmer customize this so that this image will show up as a large image when it's shared to Facebook. So all of that kind of stuff is put into account. These hashtags are there on purpose because I want people to, when they do tweet this, like for example, if you scroll down here, this is all carefully crafted here. Okay, so when you scroll to the bottom here, you'll see that people can tweet right here, right? They can tweet it. That's a good question. What's my cost? Here's the thing. I got a guy that just uploaded 221 of my catch.me posts, 221 of my catch.me replays on Periscope onto YouTube. He does all the headlines, titles, descriptions, everything for $80, and I get them off of Fiverr. It's Fiverr with 2 R's. I love Fiverr. I've done 500 gigs or more off of it over 5 or 6 years. The main thing I do is I write blog posts myself because I enjoy doing them, and I enjoy the headlines. Level 2 seller, great. I don't know specifically all the different seller types on Fiverr and how it all works, but when I tried to be the guy that did Fiverr jobs in there, I could never find enough that got me 20 or 30 gigs a day. So that was if there was enough demand to do it. So I'm really big into the headline part of it. I help another guy in real estate with Craigslist. I've been doing that. Here's the thing too, I'll say too, is every platform I work on, from Craigslist to Facebook to Twitter to everything, I've been on them for 7 to 15 years. So as much as the internet's changing, the stuff that I'm doing right now, with the exception of like Periscope and a couple things, it's been pretty much working for about 7 to 15 years as far as providing leads, or I've had the Facebook accounts for a long time and all that kind of stuff. So in answer to your question, I don't really have much overhead at all. I like to write my own blog posts. I like to fine tune my headlines. I like to learn about headlines. I like to teach what I believe in. I like to teach what actually works on the internet. You get credit for using your post. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean by that, but I look at it as do a blog post and then imagine that blog post with that headline is going to get syndicated, and you're going to do a lot of the syndicating. Okay, graphics, video editing, all that. Okay, that's cool. I hire this guy to do the video editing because it really doesn't cost me much of anything to do it. The graphics, I actually went to college for as a graphic designer. I didn't necessarily think it was the best use of my time if you can make a living doing it that way. I like scalable concepts, so I feel like a lot of companies or a lot of people I work with, they either own companies or they have enough gross income coming in that they need leverage on the sales part of it, on the top, what we would call the top of the funnel, where they want to figure out how to get more sales in. So what I do is I help them with that part, and I raise more awareness and I reach more people online. And I just find different mediums such as Craigslist or Twitter or whatever we have to find to get them more traction in the beginning part before they start to connect with people. So a thing that I do a little bit different than some internet marketers is I like when companies are big enough that they have either employees or enough cash flow where they have money for advertising, and they actually build relationships with people in the offline world. So like a real estate agent, he'll talk to the person 100 times over 200 times or 100 times over 5 or 6 months. That kind of concept works a lot better for me because they spend that much time with them, they make a lot more money, like $5,000 to $10,000 commissions. And then we all have more money to play with to be able to work the sales funnel. Whereas when people are selling stuff for $7 and $27 online, there's just not as much money to play with. But I do think video editing and graphics and all that kind of stuff are very important. I'm very big in growing the funnels, and the funnels are grown on all the social platforms nowadays, which are your Instagrams and your Twitters and Facebooks and the blog and all of these things, and they all play off of each other. So it's actually very cool how they all dynamically play off of each other. And getting back to the headlines, the reason the headline's so important is you can have the greatest video or the greatest graphics or the greatest blog article with the greatest video and the greatest graphics. But if your headline's not very good, then nobody ever sees it. So you end up having the greatest content and graphics and video that were never seen. So the headline is very important. To even go a level deeper on Facebook, I've had with these posts where I say these posts were shared 250 times, I have posts that have reached 18,000 and 25,000 people in a few days. That if I create an image or a quote with the wrong celebrity, or where what I say is a little bit off from what they're thinking, it's just kind of like, yeah, that's gonna, like, some people are gonna get it, like most people aren't gonna get it. It won't get shared that many times. I have to use just the right celebrity that people like, or just the right quote where everybody identifies with it, and then just like, oh, I so identify with this, I'm going to share it with all my friends, and then birds of a feather flock together. So then their friends also are like, yeah, I totally relate to this, and then it goes viral and it just keeps getting shared more and more and more and more. So that's where the Robert Collier post that I had from before said, enter the conversation already going on in the customer's head. So, so I'll give an example. Fofia, who's on, if she's still on right now, let me double check if she's still on right now. Yep, she's still on. So an example of a headline with her business, I don't know how well Craigslist works for her. I know a guy that was doing a lot of fences on Craigslist back a few years ago. My brother connected me with. He was doing a lot of fences, and he was extremely busy, young guy. He was on Craigslist. And so, example, you could do a headline on Craigslist. They do decks. They can do fences and stuff like that here in Minnesota. You go on the Minnesota part of Craigslist, and you can, an example headline would be decks done cheap, right? That's not a bad headline, but another one is, I'm not thinking one off the top of my head, but fear a deck collapse, call for an estimate, or something like that. And then what happens is you're actually getting people who actually fear that their deck's going to collapse or it's falling apart, and they're more apt to make a decision quicker. Or your deck is stripped down, your deck is stripped painting, embarrassed in front of the guests during the party. What you're trying to do is you're hitting that emotional point where you're, thanks for that. What you're doing is you're trying to enter the conversation already going on in their head. Okay, so a lot of people try to win this game by saying decks are cheap or decks are 20% off. But what happens is you might be attracting the wrong people, or you might be lessening the value of your services. What you're really looking for is you're looking for people's pain points. So if somebody, like for the deck thing, deck has a hole in it, reduce liability, call a deck specialist today. It's not a great headline, but you get what I'm getting at is with more time of reworking it, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the people that have the fear of the embarrassment of their decks stripping the paint, or they got a hole in their deck, or it's falling apart, or there's nails sticking out. So you're basically trying to find people with problems, and you're trying to word it in such a way that they relate to it. And then when you write that headline, what happens is people have that going on in their life, and as they're scanning through headlines on Craigslist, they see that where it says deck nails sticking out, it's a big liability or whatever, and they go, it comes to the surface again, and it's like, you're right. there are nails sticking out on my deck, and it's been bothering me for a month. And they're like, oh, well, this person's thinking like I'm thinking. So then they open the post, and that's where the person's like, I just want to make this go away. So then they call, and then they have somebody work on their deck. So you can play around with those headlines a lot, and just tweaking the words a little bit could get 10 times as many people to open the post, which can get 10 times as many phone calls, right? And then once you get them to open it, you can use more of those sub-headlines within the Craigslist post to keep basically agitating, or basically say you got nails coming out, there's liability, there's holes in your deck, it's stripping the paint, people are, it embarrassed to have you're not having a party because on the deck because, it's an embarrassment because all your paint's stripping off, you got nails poking out and everything else, and just kind of build into that, and then eventually you get to the point where you say, well, it's easy, text or call today. I get a lot of leads from text message. I'll just tell you that right now. I get a lot of leads from text message. So that's your call to action. And that's just one example of how the headlines can work. And you just got to make sure you have the right audience. The right audience is on like Craigslist and the Minneapolis part. So that'll be an example of how the headlines work. So I got more Periscopes coming up soon, guys. Thanks for all the hearts. See you soon.